Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things, and again, thanks to you, and in particular, thanks to the experts who came in. And I think it is important to say they're experts in the field of medicine, in the field of legal studies and so on, and they volunteered of their time. Many of them travelled long distances, and their testimony was invaluable and overwhelming, and I'm not really going to repeat it. I'll just maybe make a few quick points on where we go from here and what her job was, or what I think it was anyway. That we were here not just to validate the decisions of the Citizens' Assembly, but to analyse them and look at how we could possibly take them forward. And I think it's very clear, and I agree with Deputy O'Sullivan, that the first step in that, and to do that, is to look at Article 3.3 and the constitutional provision. By far and away, that is the most important. And in order to broaden the provision of abortion in line with the Citizens' Assembly, we need to repeal the Eighth Amendment. A confusion arose in the course of the Assembly, which in fairness we had aired out here with Justice Lafoy and the other legal representatives about the idea of replacing that provision with something else in the Constitution. And I think the first point maybe to reiterate here is that the intentions of the Citizens' Assembly when they explored that avenue were explored here, and I think the testimony given, and it was made clear by Justice Lafoy and indeed others, was that what the citizens wanted was they wanted more clarity. So by doing that, they thought that they were voting for a situation where the oireachtas would legislate and that it wouldn't be in the Constitution, ironically enough, and that there'd be no impediment to the oireachtas legislating, and there was an idea felt that you might have to put in something specifying that. Now, we've teased that out with our legal advisor here, and that my own view is that that is not necessary. And actual to give effect to the intention of the Citizens' Assembly, simple repeal, is the best option of doing that, because the oireachtas already has the legislative power to bring in whatever legislation it sees fit once the barrier of the Eighth Amendment is removed. And there wouldn't be any other comparative area whereby the courts would be removed from that process, which in essence what the Citizens' Assembly were recommending would be there. So my feeling on that is the original decision of the Citizens' Assembly to repeal simply is the best way forward. I'm not going to repeat the points, but that is the only way in which we can I suppose give a voice to what I believe is that the Constitution isn't a place to regulate medical practice. We were given evidence as to that real-life medicine requires flexibility. This is a public health matter. In no other area of medicine do we say, intrude in the relationship between a doctor and their patient. We allow the doctor make the best decision in consultation with the patient. And that's all that's being advocated here. For such matters to be in the Constitution has led to a situation where women's rights and women's constitutional status is significantly lessened. And I think my first concern is that it should not be in the Constitution at all. And the best way of doing that is repeal simpliciter. If legislation is published in tandem, well, sure, we know it's been prepared at the moment anyway, and I'll make some points about what I would like to see in that legislation, but it's maybe a job beyond us. Just to maybe re-emphasise, and I know we did it earlier in the committee proceedings, but the problem with putting something into the Constitution and the restrictions in that, I mean, our legal counsel was very clear that to repeal and replace in the Constitution a full piece of legislation would be unprecedented, totally unworkable. I think she also was quite clear that to replace it with specific grounds, the idea maybe along the divorce referendum. Again, there were problems with the divorce, we're going to have another constitutional referendum now to overcome what was voted in at that time. So specifying anything in a constitution becomes problematic in that sense. And that they were the reasons broad grounds or confined grounds in the Constitution give rise to all sorts of complications. So given that what was being sought by the citizens was legal certainty to broaden the provision of access to abortion in Ireland, as all of the evidence I've heard is the best way to do that is repeal simpliciter. And because of a procedural mechanism, I suppose, my belief is we have to take that vote first, because we couldn't possibly vote on other options of what might go into the Constitution first, because if you voted on one and then you jumped into having nothing, that would be completely wrong. We need to say first, should we have something in the Constitution or not, and then take the other votes then after that. I think we should...
Back to that point, because I think your point is well made, and probably it's about
I mean, it's just in terms of how we take it forward. I mean, look at... I think a lot of inaccurate points were made during the course of the discussions as well. Some of them repeated as of late, repeatedly actually, We should remind ourselves that in 1983, when this amendment was brought in, abortion was already illegal in Ireland. And it was being put forward as a mechanism which was going to stop abortion, Irish abortions. But actually all it did was meant that Irish abortions happened later. More of them were done through surgical procedures, and very vulnerable and often sick women were exported out of this country in what has been adjudicated on a violation of their human rights. And figures have been stated, but it saved loads of lives, because by restricting people's ability to travel, loads of people are around now who wouldn't be around otherwise. We have to be very clear. Figures bandied around about abortion comparative rates between Ireland and other jurisdictions cannot be validated, because we do not know the accurate statistical figures for Irish abortion rates. What we do know, and the evidence that was given to the committee, is that if you want to lower the abortion rates, which I would imagine all of us would like to have a situation doing, then restrictive legislation is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to support women's decision-making. It's to give access to sex education. It's to give access to contraception. It's to allow women have sufficient economic means to care for a child who might have a disability, that they'd have a home to bring a child into. If they were given, all of these things are the measures actually that reduce abortion. And the impression being given that if we change the Eighth Amendment, there are going to be these kind of marauding gangs of women taken to the streets now to claim their right to a late-term abortion is frankly it's really insulting to all citizens in this state, and we shouldn't have had to listen to it, but no doubt we'll be listening to a fair amount of it. I think we need to correct as well this idea of, and in fairness, Deputy Fitzpatrick reiterated there, that of abortion being dangerous. We were given expert medical evidence from the World Health Organization and medical practitioners that abortion is actually quite a safe practice. Is it the case that improper procedures have been conducted in the carrying out of some abortions which have damaged women? I would say that is probably absolutely true. But we know it's also true that our maternity services have damaged women. They've damaged babies. But our solution to that is not shut down the maternity hospitals, it's regulate them properly, ensure they carry out best practice. And it is the same in relation to the provision of abortion services. And introducing things like adoption, quite frankly, are a red herring. Adoption is legal in Ireland. There is no impediment to any woman who wants to put a child up for adoption to make that decision. So that's not the impediment. So unless you're going to sort of coerce people into decision making, there's nothing else we can do about abortion or about adoption other than provide as we do now. So I think some of those things are a little bit complicated. In terms of decriminalisation, an absolute must. It came up at every single session, and I think one of the speakers explained it really well when he said there are loads of people on this committee, and there are loads of people in the whole of Ireland and in the whole of the world who have different views on abortion, on when life begins and all the rest of it, but where you will get agreement is on the idea that women and doctors shouldn't be penalised for making such a decision, and they shouldn't be criminalised from that. And I think that's a key decision of this committee, that I would actually put that maybe up front, because a lot of what follows after that is covered by the chilling effect of that, and we got a lot of evidence to that. I'm not going to repeat it here. And in that context, I suppose, how we deal with Module 2, and I know we'll deal with it later on, but I just want to again say we were asked to address the reason, how we deal with the reasons of the Citizens' Assembly. We weren't asked to approve them or not. We were asked how we could give them life, if you like, or not. And in that sense, I think looking at it point by point is not necessarily the best way to do that, because we got so much evidence which said that a reasons-based approach wouldn't work. It would be that actually a better way to look at all of the reasons of the Citizens' Assembly in its entirety is to say, well, the majority, a clear majority of in all the categories was in relation to early pregnancy, that access should be available without restriction as to reasons, and that actually should be the starting point. And given that we know that most abortions are carried out in early term, if we started with that point, we would meet the needs of the overwhelming majority of women who presently need to access abortion. I think you combine that with decriminalisation, which would make the availability of the abortion pill illegal. It would certainly not be criminal anyway. It would allow doctors to prescribe that, and that would be, to my mind, a proper solution, along with, as Deputy O'Sullivan said, the Women's Council provision for how you would deal with later stage terminations then. But I mean, I think we should reiterate the evidence, and we spent a lot of time talking about, you know, the tragic cases of rape, fatal fetal abnormalities and so on. They're a tiny number of the women who are accessing abortion in Ireland at the moment. So in order for us to really give life to what the Citizens' Assembly is doing, we need to, I think, start the other way around. But maybe that's something we need to look at later on. Yeah, I think they're the most points I think I want to make, Chair. I think it's been a very good process. Nobody probably will have the time to go back and look at the testimony, but if there's people out there who have the time, you do a lot worse than to listen to some of the people we had in here. They were absolutely tremendous, and we owe them a debt of gratitude, you know.
Thank you, Deputy Daly.